Dr. Architect Taofeek Suleman is a chartered architect, academic, and design researcher with a PhD in architecture. He is a lecturer at the Lagos State University of Science and Technology and a registered member of the Architects Registration Council of Nigeria, ACON, and the Nigerian Institute of Architects, NIA, with professional experience across leading firms and as the founding partner of SAR Architects. His work focuses on sustainable architecture, digital innovation, and the future of design in the global south. In this session, he will be sharing insights on design thinking, a universal approach to creative problem solving, exploring how creative across different disciplines can approach challenges with innovation, structure their ideas effectively, and develop impactful solutions in today's evolving creative landscape. He currently serves as a lecturer in the Department of Architecture at the Lagos State University of Science and Technology, where he contributes significantly to teaching, curriculum development, and academic leadership. Over the years, he has taught a wide range of courses, including architectural design studio, building structure, computer design, and building information model. Beyond academic, Dr. Suleiman has built a rich professional portfolio, having worked with reputable firms such as Futurescape Architects, DBC Architects Limited, and Sujimoto Construction Limited. He also served as the founding partner and creative director of SAR Architects Limited, where he led innovative design solutions focused on sustainability, research, and social impact. His research and professional interests are deeply rooted in sustainable architecture, urbanism, digitalization, and the future of design in the global south. He has contributed extensively to academic knowledge through numerous journal publications, conference papers, and research works, with a strong focus on circular economy, architectural sustainability, and the integration of digital technology such as AI, artificial intelligence in design practice. Dr. Suleiman is widely recognized for his forward-thinking approach to architecture, one that integrates culture, technology, sustainability, and human experience to create meaningful and impactful space. Today, he will be sharing insights on design thinking, a universal approach to creative problem solving, a topic that speaks directly to creative across all disciplines. I hereby welcome our guest speaker to have the floor.
Good evening, everyone, once again. It's my pleasure to be in your midst. And first and foremost, I would like to appreciate the organizers, Creative Arts community, for putting together this creative party for us to have conversations and discussions with respect to innovation and creativity. More importantly, focusing on design thinking as a universal approach to creative problem solving. From my knowledge, I am aware that we have more than architects in the house. We have graphics designers, we have artists, photographers, creative professionals, as the case might be. That's why this topic, I'm going to be treating it across the different terrain. I will not be scoping it to any field specifically, not even architecture where I thrive. I'll be looking at it at large because first and foremost, the first question that we should ask ourselves, the first question is, what is design? In my way of communicating with people, I love having dialogue rather than just teaching blankly. I love when people can really respond. I don't know if our locality can permit us to unmute our phones and let us have it as more of a discussion rather than one-directional teaching. But if that will not be possible, then I might need to keep pushing it like that. So basically, what we should ask ourselves first is, what is design? That's the start point. What is design? Because most of us, we perceive design as a product, like the end of an exercise. But that is not really what design is. Design is actually a process. It's a process of organization, management, coordination, and careful consciousness towards achieving a desired aim. That is design, towards achieving a desired aim. And this desired aim can then be largely dependent upon whatever we are currently working on. When we say design, it's not just about images, pictures, colors, lines. Design transcends those boundaries. We can even compute design even metaphysically. We can compute design even spiritually. So design is just a conscious effort made at achieving a desired aim. And from that explanation, we can immediately realize that for you to intend to undergo a design, because design is a process, for you to have the intention of undergoing a design, then that means there must be an aim. There must be an aim. And that aim can either be a problem that you intend to solve, something that people are battling with, something that people are struggling with, something that is quite challenging, that you are now trying to go through the process of design in resolving that particular concern. Or you are trying to look forward and you are trying to be innovative. You just want to create something new. Not as if we need it or is a challenge or is a problem, but just that you are just thinking that, oh, we can create something like this. By so doing, we'll be engaging in design. So design has these two aspects. Is either we are solving a problem or we are trying to create something totally new that can then be useful to the human race. So, like I said, design is a process. Design is not a product. So designing is a process. For instance, for a graphics designer, probably you are designing a poster or a banner. That eventual thing that you have that you present to your client is not actually a design, but it is the output of the design process. So that thing that you have is not a design. It's usually probably an impression, an image, something like that, but not a design. But that thing that you are presenting to your client is the eventual output of design, because design is not a product, but rather a process. For a photographer, when you are trying to set your camera to a particular lens, you are doing an ambient setting, you are picking a particular time of the day, you are doing your aspect ratio, so that for you to have a careful composition, what you are doing across that organization or that management is design. But the eventual thing that comes out of the design is the photograph or the image. So the image or the photograph is not the design. Those things that you put in place, that idea, the reasoning, the logical organization of your camera, of your object, probably you want to take an object in relation to another object, the way you do your aspect ratio, where do you stand, what is the positioning of the camera and things like that. That is the design. That's the process of achieving the eventual photograph. So this cut across all design disciplines. We have quite a number of design disciplines. In fact, you can hardly pick a discipline that does not require design. But the design now varies from discipline to discipline. Why some designs are creative designs, some designs are analytical, some design are linguistic or literal, some design are innovative, some design are expressionist. So design is like what we all do. So it does not necessarily have to be architecture or art or graphics or photography. Design cut across so many things, so many things. So from there, we start asking ourselves types of design. Like I said earlier, design cut across so many things. We have architecture, or we call it architectural design. We have arts when we are doing our artistic works, when we are doing surrealism, abstraction, impressionism, everything that we do, even when we are doing our ceramic works, sculpture, painting, anything that we do, the intention is for us to come up with something creative. Then what we are doing is design. There is industrial design, there is product design, there is urban design, there is automobile, there is, in fact, I doubt it if there is a discipline that does not require design. For instance, in management, they will tell you, please let us design a strategy for the company. Let us have strategic design planning for a particular product. So we usually use design, but design can then be either tangible or intangible. For tangible designs, those are the ones that we can actually lay our hands on, or that we can see or perceive. Those are tangible designs. But the intangible designs, they are not things that we can see, we can perceive them, but however, we put them into place and we see the manifestation of the design in things. For instance, in management, in governance, in policy making. We say that let us design a policy, let's design legislations. So we do design in almost every aspect of our life, whether we like it or not. So different types of design. So another critical word that we should look at is what? Thinking. Thinking. What do we mean by thinking? As we all know that thinking is a mental process of organizing, managing, reasoning, deciding, and reflecting upon whatever idea we are trying to come up with. So thinking is a mental process. So for design to really occur, it goes through a thinking process. So that means that design starts in your brain. And even in architecture, we usually call something the mind's eye, where we use our mind to put things together, to organize things, to do a composition. For instance, before you do something, there must have been a pre-thinking process in your mind. Before you now start thinking through the nitty-gritty, the detail of the whole thing, there must have been something that occurred psychologically, mentally in your head. For instance, I want to buy a bag. In my head, something will start going on in my head. Oh, that bag that I want to buy must be very big. That bag must be black, or must be red, or must be yellow. And that bag must be able to carry this, must be able to carry that. You've started a thought process in your head. So there is a thought process that goes through anything that we do as human beings, whether we like it or not. For you to, before you can engage in anything, there's usually a thought process that precedes that engagement or that activity. And that thought process is what we call thinking. Thinking. So let us now bridge the two together. We've talked about design. We've talked about thinking. Then what is design thinking? What is design thinking? Design thinking is the thought process that we undertake when engaging in a design activity. That thinking through the processes of the design, that is design thinking. How we organize, how we synthesize, how we optimize, how we evaluate, those are what your design thinking processes or your design thinking stages. And when we are thinking, we don't just think about anything. Like we said, for you to engage in a design, there must be an aim. There must be something that you want to achieve. For instance, you want to solve a problem. For instance, you want to create something new. For you to do that, the first stage of thinking that you need to undergo is called understanding. That's a critical process. For instance, I want to solve a problem. Before I can engage in design, I must first have a clear understanding of the nature of the problem. What's the problem about? Who are the persons involved in the problem? How long has the problem been in existence? What are the negative and positive impacts of the problem? What are the human dimensions of the problem? I want to have a clear understanding of what the problem is. I can even take it further to even think through it from the dimension of, by the time we resolve this problem, what will be the benefit of this process to the people that will be using the output of the design? So the first stage is what? When you are thinking, design thinking, one of the things that you want to do is what? Understand the nature of that aim that you are trying to achieve. Another thing is reasoning. So that one is logical. You want to reason through it. By the time you have a clear understanding, you now want to put your understanding in a logical order for you to really have a clear line of direction on what you need to do. For instance, a client is approaching you that, please, I need a banner. I need a banner. And that banner, I want to use it probably for the inaugural lecture of someone. When you are thinking through it, you want to think, when you're thinking through it, you want to say, okay, what are the information that should be on the banner? How do I organize it? What is the color mix or color separation? What is the organization like? The image, how do I want to use the image? How do I want to set it? What is the file type, file sizes, and things like that. But that is just background understanding. And you want your clients to give you a clear brief so that you can have a clear understanding of what you need. After that, there is no need for you to now logically organize your thoughts in a logical order. So that's where reasoning comes in. So how do I organize it? Oh, okay, it's a banner for inaugural lecture. What I need to put at the top is the name of the university. So you are now organizing your understanding, your thoughts. You are now organizing it in a logical order. Oh, I need to put the name of the university. Oh, I need to put the logo. I need to put the title of the inaugural lecture. Who is the person presenting the inaugural lecture? So you are now trying to put your thoughts in a logical order. After that, you want to start imagining that organized order that you have already put in place. You can now start seeing that, oh, I placed the name, the size of this is too small. I need to increase it. Oh, this image should be on this side. It should not be on this side because it will not communicate the right thing. So you're not trying to create a mental picture of what you intend to do. You're trying to create a mental picture. Okay, if I put this image on this side, I can put the wordings on this side. I can put the logo at the top, venue date and the things. I want to put it at the base. You are actually imagining, you are creating an imaginative picture of what you are doing. So that means our thinking process, everything occurs in our head. Then at that point, then you need to make a decision. You still make the decision in your mind as well. Oh, let me go with this. Oh, no, I have 2 options. I have 3 options. Which one do I want to go with? Before we even come to the practical aspect of it, we do all these things in our head. Then rationality, then you start reflecting on it. What I have done, is it going to look nice? This image that I have in my head, is it going to come out nice eventually? Do I need to retweak it? Do I need to change something? All these things occur in our head. And these things are the things that we call design thinking. And all these cascades across all disciplines, irrespective of the creative field that you exist in. It's cut across all fields. Then, design thinking processes. What are the various design thinking processes that we have? Like I said, the way I've painted the whole thing is just a staggered organization of our thinking. But psychologists came to the realization that there is a need for us to create a pattern. They studied and realized that there is a pattern of thinking that human beings undergo. And they've been able to categorize it into 2 majorly. The first one being vertical design thinking process, the other one being the lateral design thinking process. But across the line, psychologists then evaluated that while the vertical and the lateral, they have their strengths, they still have their own weaknesses as well. And they realized that the two are actually complementary if we can match them together. So that was what brought about the hybrid design thinking process, where you combine both the vertical and the lateral in order to ensure that you can make up for the weakness of each other and leverage the benefits of the two design thinking. Let's look at vertical. When we are talking about vertical design thinking process, we are talking about the analytical design thinking process. When you are very critical about it, you are very analytic. And this is the most common way of design thinking that the psychologists have been able to identify. This is the most common. The first part of it is what? Problem identification. And please, before I go ahead, I need to say something about most of us that are in the design field or the creative field. There are so many mistakes that we make. And we have come to the realization that most times we do designs for ourselves, not for the end users. And we should actually pay attention to the end users. Because when you, for instance, for architects, when we design buildings for ourselves. We don't design buildings for either our clients or the end users. Why? Because we only see the design the way we want them to look like. But we don't usually look at the design from the dimension of the end users or the clients that is bringing the project to us. And this also cascades across all design disciplines. For instance, when someone wants to do, comes to you that, please, I need a photo shoot or something as a photographer. All we usually do most times is we impose our own appreciation of what they have said. But most times we don't really pay attention to listen to their need and have a clear understanding of what their need is about. But usually we just pay attention to what we think because we have been doing it for quite some time. We are professionals in the field. We believe we have the best understanding and appreciation of what we do. But however, most times that is not usually the case. We don't usually listen to clients. We don't usually listen to the end users of whatever design or output that we are coming up with. So it is really important for us to understand something and have this at the back of our mind, that anything that we are trying to create, people are going to use it. And for people to effectively use any output of design, then that thing must be tailored to their need or to their aspirations. So anytime we are coming with any endeavor of design, we should ensure that we have a clear understanding of the user's perception and appreciation of what we want to do. By so doing, we will not only be coming up with something that is creative, but we'll be coming up with something that immediately responds to the needs of the end user. So I just said I should bring that in to what we are discussing. So the first type of design thinking process is called the vertical design thinking process. And the first thing that we do, if you want to engage in vertical design thinking, and what is vertical design thinking? Vertical design thinking is a design thinking process in which hello, can you guys still hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Okay. So for vertical design thinking process, what vertical means is we are just focusing on one idea and we are morphing that idea all the way to the end. Just one idea. That's what we are doing. But however, we are looking into that idea critically and in depth. So that's vertical design thinking. The end product of vertical design thinking is going to make use of one idea, which will now be analyzed across different criteria and needs before you end up with a final output. And it is very analytic and it is very deep because you now have the time to look at every aspect of the design. So the first level of vertical design thinking process is what? Problem identification, or something that we call empathy. You need to empathize with the users. You know, I said that earlier, that most times we don't really understand our users before we come up with design. We only impose our own creative imagination on them, but not directly translating or interpreting their own understanding or their own needs or their own aspiration into a design output. So if you are going through the vertical analytic process, by the time I start explaining these things now, all of us will start seeing where we fit into that. Oh, so this is the way I think whenever I'm engaging in a design endeavor. By the time I explain it, we start getting that. So the first level is problem identification. Like I said, design is meant to achieve two things. It's either design is solving a problem or is creating something totally new. So irrespective of whatever case that might be, the first level is what? Problem identification. If I'm solving a problem, what is the problem that I'm solving? For instance, as architects, I want to design a kiosk for someone that sells groceries, for instance. I want to design a kiosk for someone that sells groceries. The problem identification there is, what is that kiosk? What is the purpose? What is it going to serve? What purpose is it going to serve? It's meant to sell groceries. One, what type of groceries? What's the patronage like? Is it a place where people need to come and enter the kiosk? Or is it a place people need to just see, like a showroom that you can stay outside, see it, pick what you are interested in, and it will be given to you? Or is a place, or in terms of accommodation, what is the population that the kiosk can accommodate? By all this doing, we are trying to understand the problem. Where the kiosk is going to be situated. Where is it going to be situated? What's the locality like? What are the other facilities around that locality? So this is trying to probe the problem around it. Or another perspective to it is, for instance, you have been asked to design a kiosk. Within a collection of kiosks, for instance, maybe someone is maybe at ShopRite, where you have a lot of kiosks, and you are now coming in to build your own kiosk. One thing that you can look at is, okay, the other kiosks that have been here prior to these ones, what are the issues that they are having? Are they having issues of lighting, issues of ventilation, issues of effectiveness, efficiency, ease of use by user, accessibility, and things like that? You are looking at the problem from so many perspectives. So until you understand what the problem is, that is when you can start having a design appreciation that can directly respond to the problem. For instance, I am a photographer. Someone came to me that I require a photo shoot. As a photographer, the first thing you ask the person is, what do you need the photo shoot for? Because the kind of image appreciation or photographic appreciation that you require for birthday is different from that you require for wedding, or that you require for convocation ceremony, or that you require for burial ceremony. So it varies. So you need to know what the problem is. And when we say problem, as far as design is concerned, is not connoting negative problem, so to speak. Please, let's get that right. It's not connoting negativity when we say problem. Problem is just an issue that you are trying to respond to. It does not have to necessarily be a negative issue. It can actually be positive, and it can neither be negative nor positive, depending on what situation that you might find yourself. So the first thing is empathy. It needs to be human-centered. Anything that we are doing is going to be appreciated by human beings. Either it's going to be by perception, by sensation, by use, by perception. For instance, it might just be maybe ambience. Maybe you have been invited as an interior designer. Please come and make this my space quite interesting. And you are looking at the color, the elementation, the lighting, the materiality, the fabric, the cushion, and everything. So it might be by perception. Some it might be by sensation. What's the smell like? What's the smell psychology? How do you feel when you enter the space or when you use that particular tool? So we need to understand the problem from different perspectives. What is that thing that you are trying to solve? And when we are saying we are solving, it's not like we are solving a negative problem. It can be a positive problem. For instance, in architecture, our problems are neither negative or positive, but they are issues that we are trying to respond to. And this cascades through other disciplines. So as photographer, someone is asking you, please, I want a photo shoot. The next thing that you want to inquire into is photo shoot for what? Is it for wedding? Is it for birthday? Is it for what type of celebration? So that you can have a clear understanding of the dimension from which you can then start thinking through the solution to the problem. The second stage is research and data collection. This depends on the type of design that you do. For instance, when you want to do photo shoot, for instance, for wedding, for instance, during the research and data collection stage, you want to ask the couple, what do you people call it? Is it the branding, the color, the location? Where do you want to have the picture? Is it like a street or indoor or garden? So you're trying to gather data that can assist you in properly defining the problem. Because when we have the problem, the first thing is identify the problem. The next stage is what? Defining the problem. And for you to define the problem, there is a need for you to collect information so that you have a clearer understanding of what the need is about. So you need to inquire, what do you want? How do you want it? Do you want it as a daytime photography, or midday, or dusk, or twilight, or night? You are trying to inquire, how do you want to have it? Is it standing position, sitting position, walking position? You are trying to inquire into it for you to properly define the need of the user. And as architects, what we also do is, when we are designing for people, we need to go out there and ask them questions. It's not just trying to solve a problem, it's also defining the problem. We even need to inquire into the problem. For instance, if I'm designing in a place like Makoko, for instance, I need to go in there and really ask them questions. I want to understand their social lifestyle, their socio-cultural lifestyle, economic status, psychology of space, the morphology of that community. So I need to go there and gather data, because the data that I gather will assist me in properly defining the problem. Then after defining the problem, you have already identified the problem, you have defined the problem. So now we now have a clear understanding of what the problem is. And when we say problem, it can also mean needs. So that means you have a clear understanding of the needs or aspiration of the client or the user or the people who require the output of your design. Once you have a clear understanding, the next stage is conceptualization. Then you start ideating. You start coming up with ideas. But in a vertical design thinking process, we usually come up with one idea that we then refine across the stages. So you now come up with one idea that solves a problem at hand. So that's the ideation process. And that ideation process must factor in all the needs and aspirations that you were able to gather across the data collection stage. After coming up with that eventual idea, then you now need to start reflecting on that idea. You need to start critically and analytically start looking at that particular idea and start seeing if it will fit into the needs of the end user. And that is why we call, at that point, what we are then doing is what? Design optimization. We come up with prototype. For instance, as a photographer, by the time you take the first few shots, you show it to the client, does this fit into what you need? Said no, the lighting is bad, the orientation, the facial expression, or if it were to be a graphics designer, said, oh, change this, change, there is a typo error here, the organization here is not good, the color separation is not nice, the positioning of the image on the banner is not good. So you create a prototype that you present to the users so that they can start looking at it and start critiquing your initial ideation to ensure that it fits into or respond to the problem at hand. So there is a need for you to come up with a prototype. So in a vertical analytic process, there's usually a prototype at the design optimization stage. Is that prototype that we start tweaking? For instance, some of us might want to run simulation. For architects, when we do design, probably the problem that you are trying to solve in a building is an issue of ventilation, for instance. By the time you come up with your conceptual idea, you need to come up with a prototype. It can come as a scaled model, detailed model. It can even come as a digital model that you can then subject to some simulation tools for you to check that have I been able to achieve the level of ventilation or the level of lighting that I want to achieve. So same thing as the photographer, you want to present the first few shots or prototype to the client so that you can then test, so that they can look at it and say that, oh, this looks nice. Oh, change this. Oh, my posture here is not good. My positioning here is not good. There is darkness here. The light here is not really looking nice. The background is not well detailed and things like that. So at that level, we keep doing prototyping and we keep testing it until we come to an eventual position that we can then agree that we have resolved the problem. And at the end of the day, then we come up with an output of that design process. For a photographer, the output will be what? Shots, pictures. For a graphics designer, depending on the kind of graphics design that the person is trying to come up with, it might be a banner. For an artist, it might be a sculpture, it might be a painting, it might be a mural, it can be a ceramic work, it can be anything, it can be a metal work, anything at all. For an architect, it might be a building, a product design. At the end of the day, you come up with something that then responds to the needs and aspiration of the user. And the key characteristics from my explanation, the key characteristics of vertical design thinking processes is what? Depth over variety. It allows us to look critically into that idea because it's just one idea that we are morphing. One idea, not multiple ideas. You start with one concept, then you take it through all the way to the end. Or you start with one concept and it evolves into form evolution. For architects, it transforms into form evolution. Then you start tweaking the form to respond to needs, sustainability, ventilation, lighting, thermal comfort, functionality, circulation, accessibility. It's just one idea that you keep refining and refining and refining. You keep solving each problem within that singular idea. Then, at the end of the day, you have something that is more analytically reflected upon. Another thing is logical progression. In vertical design thinking process, there is a logical progression. It's like a linear thinking process that we go through from problem identification, collection of data, conceptualization, and design optimization. Also detail-oriented, because it's just one idea. It gives us that flexibility to look at every aspect of that singular idea in integrity, and it involves continuous refinement of the idea. So the second one is what? Lateral thinking, which is the creative and the explorative design thinking process. And this was propounded by someone called Edward de Bono, and they call it the de Bono's theory. And this is when we are trying to think outside the box. In vertical design thinking, the start point is what? Problem identification. But in lateral design thinking is you are starting with assumptions. You challenge assumptions. What if? So if you start challenging the assumption behind a particular idea, that, oh, I have this particular idea, what are the assumptions guiding that idea? For instance, if a client should come and meet us that, oh, I need a photo shoot. So you can first say that, okay, they need a photo shoot for wedding, or yes, for wedding. You can just say, okay, I'll give you morning shot, night shot, midday shot, so that you can now look at it that, okay, the midday shot, does it look nice or not? The morning shot, is it looking better in terms of lighting, posture? Before you can now start saying, oh, maybe we should go with the midday shot or the morning shot. So you first start with assumptions. Instead of saying in vertical thinking where you say that, oh, let me just focus on one. Okay, if it is day, let me just take day shots, then I take multiple day shots. But when it comes to lateral thinking, you are looking at challenging assumptions. So you first lay out multiple options and start challenging each option and start searching for which one best fits the particular problem that you are trying to solve. And so the first, in lateral thinking, the first level is challenging assumption. What if I consider this? What if I do this? What if I put this here? What if I change this? By so doing, as you keep challenging the assumption, you start coming up with multiple options. And the next level of design, lateral design thinking, is called fractionation. So once you now start looking at fractionation, is you are now looking at it from different perspectives. For instance, if I start taking the photo shoot, say in the morning, okay, the morning is too bright. Okay, should I come? Should it be earlier in the morning or late morning? So that you can start looking at different detail of each of the different options. So you're actually breaking down the multiple options into smaller options or smaller issues that you can then resolve. So by so doing, you keep generating multiple design ideas. That is why lateral thinking is more of a creative and explorative idea. You start exploring multiple solutions. In lateral thinking, you have one conceptual idea that you are in vertical thinking, you have one conceptual idea that you are refining. But in lateral thinking, you can have multiple conceptual ideas that you are actually working on at the same time. You are working on multiple ideas at the same time. Then the next stage is random stimulation. At times, you might need to look outside the confines of the reality of the project or of the problem or issue to look for solution. For instance, as an architect, I want to design like healthcare center. We all know what healthcare center is. We know it's like a primary center where people go to get treated and things like that. I can start looking at it from another perspective that is completely alien to health center. For instance, I can start looking at it from the tradomedical point of view. I can start looking at it from incremental solution. For instance, I have some students who are currently in finals, in their final year. They are a group of 5 and they are working on the same project, Lasustek Health Center. But what we are doing is we are tackling that health center from 5 different standpoints. One person is looking at it from tradomedical center. Another person is looking at it from adaptive reuse. Another person is looking at it from incremental design. Another person is looking at it from environmental psychology, empathic healing. Another person is looking at it from participatory design approach. So we have 5 perspectives from which we are looking at the same problem, and we are using 5 approach. And that's the beauty of lateral design thinking, random stimulation. We can look at multiple solutions to solve a particular problem, and we are working with the multiple solutions. But at the end of the day, we'll then come down and narrow down on which one best fits the solution. At the end of your lateral design thinking, what you then have is what? Generating alternatives. By the time you start challenging assumptions, you do fractionation, and you do random stimulation, you have multiple design solutions. However, the challenge of lateral design thinking is it is not in-depth. It is not in-depth because you have so many solutions. It would now be very difficult for you to now critically look at each solution independently if you are using lateral design thinking process. And that is the strength of vertical thinking, because vertical thinking is just one concept that you are now refining. That gives you the opportunity to look at every aspect of that idea. But in lateral design thinking, because you are coming up with so many solutions, it's usually difficult for you to really look analytically or critically look at every aspect of each and every one of the solutions of the alternatives that you have. So these are some of the challenges of lateral thinking. And for vertical thinking too, vertical thinking is confining, is very convergent, it's not divergent in its approach. Vertical thinking is just one idea that you are looking at. That streamlines your thinking, it limits it. But lateral thinking, that you come up with different ideas, different creative solutions to a particular problem, which gives you a plethora of ideas to work with. So the vertical has its own strengths and weaknesses. The lateral has its own strengths and weaknesses as well. And in lateral design thinking, your thinking process is not usually linear. For instance, you are challenging assumptions, you can do random stimulation, you can go back again to challenge the assumptions behind the stimulations. Then by the time you are doing fractionation, you can go back to the assumptions of the different perspective from which you are tackling the solution. So it is not lateral. While vertical is lateral, while vertical is linear, lateral design thinking is not linear in its approach. You can always go back and forth to tweak and change things. Also, it's creative thinking, because it's usually explorative, imaginative. Lateral design thinking is quite explorative and imaginative in its approach and its unconventional solution. By the time, because you have multiple solutions, multiple assumptions guiding different solutions that you are working with, at times you start coming up with some unconventional solutions that are far away from the ones that people are already used to. You can start thinking outside the box and start doing things that are completely alien to the known reality or the cliche. So those are the two types of design thinking. The third is just a combination of the two. Because of the weaknesses of the two, now the third one, which is hybrid, which is the innovative design thinking, is combining the two into one. When you look at it, you will see that because lateral assists you in design or idea exploration, it will be good that we do lateral at the earliest stage of our design thinking process, and now eventually do vertical thinking towards the end, when we start narrowing down on which of the are currently having conversations around the fact that there is a need for us to merge the two, so that we can have a much more innovative and imaginative solution to the needs and aspirations of people. And when you look at the order here, it's just a combination of the two. Problem identification, just like you have it in the vertical research and data collection, the way you have it in the vertical conceptualization, the way you have it in the vertical, then you now proceed to the lateral, which is challenging assumptions, fractionation, random stimulation, generating alternatives. After generating the alternative, that is, generating alternatives means having multiple solutions to one problem. You now start synthesizing those problems. You now start looking at them in detail, critically. So you now go back to your what? Vertical thinking. You now start looking at each. There might be need for you to combine some solutions together. There might be need for you to throw away some solutions if they don't fit into the assumptions that underpins the solutions that you're trying to come up with. So that's synthesis. Then after synthesis, that eventual one that you are working with, you now evaluate it, that has it responded to the problem and the solutions at hand. I know I've been speaking, how will I put it? What I've been saying is quite abstract. It's not really anchored on a particular discipline. And I was intentional about that because I realized that we have quite a number of different fields of expertise on within this community, so I don't really want to narrow it down to architecture. For convenience, it would have been easier for me to narrow it down to architecture, but I just want to take it at large so that it cuts across each and every one of us: the graphic artists, the fine artists, the architects, the photographers, and the likes. So on this note, I would like to say, and okay, one more slide here. Characteristics of hybrid, we've mentioned it. It combines both convergent and divergent thinking. Convergent thinking, we are talking about vertical. Divergent thinking, we are talking about lateral. And also, it balances innovation with feasibility. One of the advantages of hybrid is it assists us to be able to achieve something that is doable and achievable, rather than something that is just purely imaginative and exploratory. Also, it encourages iterations and refinements. That's the beauty of hybrid. You can always iterate. You can always go back and retweak, then come back, then refine, critically look at things in details. It produces practically yet original ideas. So it assists us in that regard. Instead of just thinking out of the box, it gives us the opportunity to think through all our ideas carefully and being able to achieve them. Okay, thank you. If we have questions.
Let us all show appreciation to our speaker. Let's click on the emojis to appreciate him. He has really spent a lot of time explaining how we can actually approach creative problems across, not just to architecture only, across all creative disciplines. And he really did justice to that. Even I myself, that I don't really know more about photography, the way he explained it, I could pick some approach I can take, even if I want to venture into photography or any other creative direction. And I believe as well that at least one of us, we were able to get one or two things that we can actually take as an approach in responding to any creative problem. And as well, I believe that we should have questions, and anybody that wants to ask questions can kindly unmute himself and speak, or you can drop your message in the in-call message. We'll be taking about 2 to 3 questions just because of time. Thank you very much. So any question, anyone, you can drop in the in-call message, and you can also raise your hand. And sir, while we are expecting the question, I want to ask, are we going to get a slide so I share with?
Sure.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Okay, Fuad Abdul Fatah, you are raising up your hand. You have the floor.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much, sir. We really appreciate this presentation. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you more. So my question is that you are given a project to work on. What are the steps we should take following the design principles you've explained to us? But what are the steps we should take as a student learning or coming up as a prospective architect now?
Hello.
Alexa, did you get the question?
Yes, loud and clear, but do you want me to get all the questions and respond to all at once, or one after the other?
I think one after the other will be better so that everybody can relate.
Okay, so like I said, I was intentional in not narrowing the presentation to architecture, but you are now asking me to narrow it down to architecture now as a question. So I said something earlier in the course of the presentation that most times we design for ourselves, not for the end users. That's one thing that we need to hold on to. We design for ourselves and not the end users. And things like that, processes like that, don't end up into something that is user-centered. It's not human-centric, because we have not been able to carefully define what the problem is. And how do we define the problem? Is by carrying out research and data collection. We collect data. For instance, you guys are working on, I want to work on a residential building. I want to design a residential building. I have a client. Maybe my client is an artist. If you are designing for such clients, you'll be designing for yourself if you don't gather the right data. So the best thing, the best approach to it is for you to meet with your clients. Even as students that you don't really have direct clients, your lecturers are your clients. But once the users of your designs are defined, then you need to go out of your way to collect data from that group of persons. For instance, we have students that are currently working on a dream house in the department, 200 level students working on a dream house, and they are meant to define their users or the client, so to speak. And they have freedom to pick from architect, artist, banker, anybody that they feel like. Yes, as much as your lecturers are the client, but you are defining who the end user will be. So if I define it as an artist, I can easily go to art and design and pick some of their artists and ask them some questions that, as an artist, how would you like your house to look like? What are the kind of facilities that you would like to have in your house? What is your understanding and appreciation of space? What are the spaces that you like to really make use of? What are the external facilities that you need to have in terms of landscaping, maybe recreational facilities? In fact, particularly with respect to their discipline, artists usually like to have studios in their house so that they can do some creative works even when they are at home. So we need to ask questions and understand their needs and aspirations. So the start point for any design endeavor is what? Finding out the needs and aspirations of the end users. At times, your end users might not be your clients. Yes. For instance, if you have a development consulting company engaging you as an architect to design an urban regeneration plan for a place like Makoko, for instance. Your client is the development company, but your end users are the people in Makoko that are going to eventually use the building. The development company might just be a financier of the project. So you need to marry their both ideas into what you are doing. You collect data from the financier because they are the ones coming up with the idea. You also collect data from the end users who are the people living in Makoko. And by so doing, we call that process democratization in design, where you allow the users, the end users of the output of your design to play a central role in the design process. So the start point is collection of data, then you process your data, then you proceed with the other stages that we have mentioned. Data collection is the most important part of it. Okay, I hope that is clear.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Very clear, sir. Thank you very
Done
much.
justice to that question. So we have another question here. We have two other questions, and I think that's the one we are going to take. So let me read out the one I have on this place from Gift Christopher. It was explained that design is a way of solving problem or doing something to ease the human race. Now, for those in fashion designing, how is it expected of them to think of design as they are not designed to solving problem?
Okay,
So
did I answer that?
Okay, and let me read the other question as well. So,
Okay.
from Olanyoju Muhammad. Based on what Dr. Suleman said, how does product design relate to architecture, and what are the thinking processes that are required of a product designer? That's all, sir.
Okay. So, like the question was asking that fashion designers, are they solving problem? How would they use design as a problem-solving process in fashion design. Like I said, when we say problem, it does not connote negativity. Problem is issue. Issue. As far as design is concerned, when we mention the word problem, we are not saying that something bad. No, it's just the issue at hand that you are trying to respond to. In fashion design, like I said, once you mention the word design, is always problem lady. In fashion design, the problem is the satisfaction of the client. For instance, the client is asking, okay, I want you to design an attire for me that I am wearing to a birthday party, and an attire that I'm wearing to a wedding. Within these two needs, there is problem somewhere. And where the problem is the client has an aspiration or has a need that needs to be satisfied. For instance, a client comes to you. This particular birthday that I'm going to is transparent. We are wearing something transparent. I'm sorry to say that. We are wearing something transparent. And you now eventually design something that is not transparent. The clothes is looking nice, is great, is fantastic, is well designed, fine couture, everything, but is not still meeting the needs of the client. Because where the client is wearing that clothes too is where they require transparent clothing. So, as fashion designers, our problem is the issue that the client is bringing forward. And every client, whenever you want to sew any clothes, they will tell you that, I want it to be like this. I want it to be stylized like this. The front should be like this. The back should be like that. The bottom should be this, should be that. They are actually trying to paint the problem to you. That's the problem that they are trying to paint. And that is what you are now going to use your own experience and creative imagination to now put all those problems together into a whole and profile a solution that best fits their need. So when we say problem is not just negative, it's about issue, what you are trying to achieve. The aim of the endeavor is what the problem is. And for every design process, there is always a problem, which is an issue or a need or an aspiration or a satisfaction that the client is expecting from you. So as designers, we also go through this design thinking process. For instance, if I am a fashion designer, someone brings a cloth to me, the first thing I want to know is, what is the purpose? For what purpose is this clothing meant for?